I would like to move to Mr. Jim. What is impact of wars on the global environment and the natural habitats of animals on the lands, seas, and the sky?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the impact on the environment from war is too high a cost for us to pay. It is destroying so much. Again, on Long Island, where I grew up, okay, the last natural forests of trees were used up during World War II. There are no natural trees left over on Long Island. So war is destroying so much. 70% of the wild animals have disappeared since World War II. But the same number of forests are now gone. That has happened over 6,000, 10,000 years, as Sohail mentioned last week. We are in a desperate situation as far as climate change. And like we talked about, the media only mentions CO2, but and there's a reason they don't mention oxygen. We are in a desperate need for more oxygen. And this is what is behind the human's lung conditions. It's too quick of a change. It's not evolution when these things happen. And the primary reason has been imperialism, and imperialism from the West. So the responsibility is on all of us, but there's a real responsibility on the American people. And I don't want to I don't want to sound one-sided in everything, but I do want my American friends to learn because they need to heal, and they need to heal the planet. We can't keep using up the planet, using up all of these minerals to house, 20,000, 50,000, a million old airplanes in the deserts of Arizona and California. It's such a waste. It's crazy. It's so negative that we have to learn. The people that are running the Imperial West, the people that are in control in the USA, they don't want anybody to know about any of this. And like I said last week, they are, and Paul mentioned it, that they've created such a thin line of knowledge that's allowable. Like they won't allow Americans to have any knowledge, and will never. I'm 70, me and Paul are the same age. I've never heard a positive word from anybody in the American media that China's ever done. Well, China is not bombing countries and destroying forests. China, again, is planting millions and millions of trees. They planted a forest in Tibet, and the Tibet people are very happy with their lives since China got rid of the Dalai Lama, and the people were all serfs, and they had no chance to progress because it was all established by, an odd aspect of their religion or whatever. Now they can participate in things they believe in. They can participate in Buddhism. They can participate in Islam, and their economy is good. China has taken 850 million people out of poverty. China's gotten awards for this work. Nobody in America knows this. This is a big point. Americans have to open that door. They've got to allow themselves to look everywhere, when you talk to an American, there is a propaganda sentence that they'll use to tell you why they can never open that door and understand China. China has created so many miracles. China is the biggest democracy in the world. Oh, yeah, they don't vote. There's no book. Do not find me a book that says democracy is voting. It's not voting. It's a matter of the people having the chance to express through their daily work and in their communities what their needs are. But also, it has a government that, of course, is demonized and everything, that is listening to people, that gets sent out to these villages. China is so big, it's hard to understand, but China has everything. China has the nicest, wealthiest areas, and China has some of the poorest areas. But they have hope because over the last 70 years, they have seen so much positive advancement for the people. It's frustrating to have to try to explain the amazing miracles that are happening in China because the people are really hardworking. The people in China don't go to and clock out, after 8 hours of work. And, they have a spirit that's similar to what America had after World War I. They have, and the spirit that they have is building on these 285 millennia cities that they're building. They work 24 hours a day, not each person. They work in shifts, but they work right through the night with the lights, and they have all the best equipment. If they need some kind of equipment, there's a Chinese company that's ready to make it fast. And this is a big part. They talk about military strength from the West. China doesn't talk about this. China doesn't want to be a hegemon. China doesn't want to colonize the world. China loves China. China, in time, is going to double their size internally because they're going to plant trees in the desert. China is going to help Iran so much, and they're going to plant so many trees. They're going to green Iran. Greening is not a quick profit plan like in the U.S. Oh, we can't make profit in 2 weeks. Forget about it. We're not doing it. China is an old civilization. They do not think like the West at all. At all.
And they know how to wait.
And Pakistan, India is the same way. They have a long history, and that's where their mindset is in. India, is pretty chaotic. Pakistan, again, like I said, Pakistan's got a real opportunity. We're going to look back in 5 or 10 years, and we're going to see where friendship, cooperation, peace, and prosperity have created a whole new positive situation in Pakistan. 46 countries in Africa now have signed on to the Belt and Road. Kenya people are doing better now than before. They love their new railroad built for China. Malawi has been working with China for 12 years now. They love their new government administrative building that China built for free.
Exactly.
every country has this wonderful example, and the people see it. They see it today. 5 years from now, they're going to see it more. In Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, people who had been there 15 years ago and have seen it today are in awe of all the new structures that China has built. This story about debt is a Western dialogue. China doesn't make any money off of these projects. The Chinese people, they love to work. They love to build. The Chinese government knows that in the long term, but it's going to come pretty quickly, that it's not even for their benefit. They know that it's going to create economy, and they want to help create this economy. And yes, surely, of course, every businessman wants to get some value in the economy. So in the Congo, the Congo has a lot of resources. They have a lot of cobalt. China's the leader in electric cars. China needs cobalt. China's probably going to find cobalt in China soon, but, we'll see. So the Congo can trade their cobalt for what China is doing. What China is doing is going to turn the Congo in 10 years. You're not going to recognize it. These millennia cities are going to start appearing. They're being planned now. Trust me, they're being planned now, where they're taking these cities so that they can use the land for farmland to produce food. Food's kind of important, and by concentrating people in these planned cities that are basically parks with houses,
Exactly.
the people benefit so much.
Great. So
No, I just
let's
want to add 2 points to
Exactly.
Jim's point about what is coming to the future. Because I always running from country to country. Even I'm speaking Spanish with a Portuguese accent, or Portuguese with a Spanish. By the border, we call it from Espanol, Spanish, or Portuguese. By the border, Brazil and the southern borders, we call it Portuñol. So Porto is Portuguese, Ñol is the Espanol, the Spanish. If we understand, because I am embracing cultural anthropology a little bit into the linguistics, okay? All the language, the Chinese coming up in the last 10 years, I create a term called economocracy. China, like everybody else, 90% of the people talk about we embrace democracy. But that little touch about you have to have a little bit representation on the economy. In other words, China trying to make the 600 to 800 million people away from poverty is a step moving into the economic strata. Then they can read and study and learn about what is a real democracy. The Rome had not the real democracy, not the Greeks. Athens only lasts so long. So is the American democracy the world standard? By what we have witnessed now, that democracy is just very frail. All of a sudden, we have one man coming out becoming a cult, Mr. Donald Trump. He matters more before the party. So what I'm trying to say, we are in this hyphenated time, okay? A little bit about the language. Spanish and Portuguese and French, plus a whole series of the Gallego from Galicians, they all call vulgar Latin. They came from the lingua franca that we're speaking English as the conqueror's language from the Romans, Latin.
Exactly.
Because they become localized. So what we are talking about, you and I, and Jim, we must not be afraid to create a dialogue, okay, in English. But we creating a language, I hope that we can reach many people. I'm not
sir,
here.
You have
I'm not
mentioned.
here to antagonize.
You have
I'm not here to
mentioned.
antagonize.
Sorry, sir. You have mentioned about the democracy of USA. I would say whole democracy of USA stands on the policy recommendations of Pentagon, nothing else.
Well, but the democracy in ideal, the whole country are well educated. Okay, they will understand democracy.
Exactly.
But the democrats have been using a weapon to fight all others. Americans attacking China by saying that you do not have our kind of democracy. The way Americans have weaponized, this is a very, very important question. When the world destroyed, we have only one culture, which is the shortest culture in the Western world, which are the Americans. However, they have a Jewish Hollywood who owns all the media, who puts Charlton Heston as a white Moses, Ben-Hur, or any other character. They have to become an Americanized version of history. Okay? Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton is Antony. So the point is that we have color-coded the world history by the visual arts of the American, which they have done the best. They are the best cinematographic culture in the world. But we all get influence into see the world's, all the industry, the car, everything color, Hollywood, Jerry Lewis, smash cars, Jimmy Dean committing suicide by racing, all the destructive self-absorption, narcissistic culture were fully shown by the Americans. Only American can smash
for the manipulation, cars. Sir. For the manipulation.
Even today, the media, today is no longer the CIA American using, the National Endowment for Democracy. They have the color revolution in Egypt. They have the tricolor revolution in Hong Kong, but fail. Again, they don't have a depth understanding each culture. The reason we are here, more importantly, Jim and I are still going, quote, we are hosted by the US. We do not want to be antagonistic about American policy. Exactly. We are into the conversion for the good American to share our global view.
Exactly.
Welcome them to critique. If something we said wrong, show me. We don't have all the answers.
Exactly. And you're right, sir. Majority of the people, majority of the civilians are innocent. They don't know even what are the things and how things are going on.
Well, but the only tools, I think, youth is the future. Education is the best instrument, because you can teach them. They say, well, I don't agree with you. You're like, for example, if you and I talk about history, okay, we have an Indian here. He may be totally silent. His body language will say, well, I don't agree with this. Then you're Pakistani and the Chinese against us Indians, okay? But you know what? These are the challenges. We have to bring in people who are opposite to our thinking and participate. Only in that process, he may change his mind. Even as 1%, there's a change. We do not want to antagonize or stereotyping Americans or villains, or the Republicans or Democrats or Indians, Pakistani, Chinese. But I think we got to come to come to a dialogue. May this room expand in multiples.
Exactly.
And share the same process and question and answer. If I really don't know the language, what it meant, you can no challenge. For example, in my linguistic, I told my Roman Catholic priest, I said, I don't like the term, Jim knows, sinister in English. Sinister. Wow, that's a very ugly word. But sinistra in Spanish, in Italian, and in Latin means left hand. So even in the language, in the Middle Ages, any lefties were called the devil's child. They kill him. There's no question. Clinton will be massacred by the Roman Catholic Church at that time because he's a left-handed man. All right. So sinister means lefty, left-handed, demonish. So language in itself is transforming what it really meant, what is today.
Exactly. So, sir, let's move on to next question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I would like to ask you that tell us about public opinion of people regarding arms race and games of wars, and how it can be used as tool to influence policymakers.
But let me be very blunt. Maybe people will call me a spy now. China's exchange ratio with the US is 7-1, right? That means that China can produce all the US arm produce with 1/7 of the Chinese money. So on this note alone, Americans should be alarmed, all right? Because we have a minimum wage coming up to $15 an hour, right? And any of the slightly technical handling of the arm manufacturing will be very costly. So if there's an arms race, which, let me tell you, historically, the US had done it right by Nixon and his Jewish advisor, Henry Kissinger, approaching Mao, approaching China, taking advantage at that time when China and the Soviet Union had their crisis. Because the Soviet Union under Stalin and the Khrushchev, they wanted China to be only agriculture, produce food, leaving the war weapons and heavy industry to us. Mao Zedong say, no, hell no. We are a sovereign nation. We cannot just become a satellite of the communist world. So with that split, China and Russia had border skirmishes. They had war actually. So the American thought of it, well, let's exploit the situation. Very cunning, very clever, Henry Kissinger wanted to move the American 7th Fleet to surround the communist bloc away from the Asia. By that, they're gaining positive signs from Chairman Mao. They want Mao to arbitrate the peace settlement in Vietnam, which they have no way out. The way American exit Vietnam was the ugliest scene. But behind the scene, in Paris, Chinese influenced the North Vietnam, give the Americans a little nice way out without suffering too much. You see?
Exactly.
Arms race. No, but this is Nixon's passing on to Reagan. By diminishing that military posturing in Asia, they moved back to Atlantic, beef up NATO, and force Russians into the arms race. That's what had caused Russia collapsing.
Exactly.
Americans just keep printing money. Don't forget, Americans weaponized their dollar from the time. We have
Even they had started the space race.
We have to understand the economic history. The first point was, I am a jeweler, goldsmith. 1977, I opened my business. The gold was $68 an ounce. Today is 2000. But at the time when Nixon had announced that they're no longer using dollar as the deposit, the gold, they moved all the oil into the oil industry to the Saudi Arabia. Build the oil industry with the clause that they have to use American dollar. Nobody can buy oil without the US dollar. So they're milking the extra, the SWIFT, whatever money going through, 0.12% of $1 trillion a day, or 2 or 4. They're making money. The dollar become a weapon. Another form American weaponized with the dollar, they come into Brazil, they first with billions of dollars to build up the economy. Just on this cusp, just on the rise, they call all the money back to the US by jack up a couple points of interest. All the money leaving Brazil to the high interest, defecting Brazil, and the scavengers, Americans, will buy up all this good industries. So the weaponizing of the Americans is just a very, very small scale. But again, if you and I do not understand economics, the fundamentals, not the fundamentals, the wrong fundamentals economics, we all become victims. Okay?
Exactly.
This is what the war is going on. China can produce all the American have with 1/7 of the American cost because the exchange ratio. My observation may not be 100% right, but just giving another angle, another participant will come in and speak of it. So China, can they weaponize against US? But the most dangerous is how Americans weaponize their dollar. This is the world, the whole world is at a disadvantage. So your question about arms race, well, it's a dollar race. Like right now, Brazil, for 50 years, they still have black market dollar. You change a check, cost you 15%. You send $1,000 to Brazil, the dollar will take 15. we take $150 out of it. When a country has no longer strength in your own currency, you are the rape victim. You are falling into the prey and predator game of the American dollar. Whoever plays it. HSBC, what is HSBC? Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, Hong Kong Shanghai Opium Bank Corporation. They make all the money from opium by the non-Jews, by the Jardine and Matheson. They sold it to the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds own 90% of the central banks in the world. So they control not only the dollar, they can control the influx of the currency. I don't know how Pakistan pays the black market dollar. Okay, the Sri Lankan workers in Saudi Arabia, they get charged, very high charge for the change. Okay, we talk about the poor people pay the highest money change. Why? Why? Where is the sympathy from the strong, moralistic, capitalist country like US? There's no such thing. They are milking the poor every day. When poor are being milked, they become slaves. When they no longer have the money to fight, they just surround it. And who become the big slaves? The Anglo-Americans. In America, we call the house slaves. The house slaves will beat up their own black people because they don't want to beat up by their bosses. Who are the bosses of the Anglo-American empire? The bankers. Whoever they are. Whoever they are. So the Anglo-American empire is a house slave beating up the others. They have to do. That's what the prison. How many bombs did they send? How many missiles did Jimmy Carter send? How many missiles did Clinton? They have a quota to bomb because that bomb means how many industry will continue to make bombs.
Exactly.
So moving this way, they're not going to compete with China. China is not underrated.
That's the reason we call them capitalism and bloody capitalism. That's the reason we call them.
No, I believe in capitalism. When I make money, I told you at the beginning of my business, what is my profit margin? Who is suffering from me?
Exactly.
I can be a pawn. You come into me and say, my husband just died. I have no cash. I have this diamond ring worth $6,000 in the market. In the wholesale market, maybe worth about $4,000. I have my colleagues will buy that for $200. Okay? I can't do that. I go to the jungle in Brazil, I buy amethyst, cutting amethyst $1 a carat, and sell for $3 a carat in China. But I have done that out of my expertise, my language, and my skill, and my global market awareness. I become $1 million rich because I can sell amethyst at the cutting and all. My stone goes from Brazil to Hong Kong, to Bangkok, to Chiang Mai by the border of Burma, cutting at 20 cents a carat, going back to Hong Kong, selling at $3 a carat. So it costs me one. People say, you are a son of a merchant. I made it by my intelligence.
Exactly.
I did not make it by the speculation or by threatening somebody, rob you and sell it in the market. I think there are ethics in business. They're good capitalists. In this program, we want to invite more capitalists. I want to invite people, but have conscience, have ethical standard, and have morals.
And
That's
morality, yes. So
Yes.
we would like to move to Mr. Jim. So
Sure.
Mr. Jim, you have been traveling on 6 continents in the last 11 years and have made people art at all levels. What can people do to end this arms race and bring peace to the world?
The people have to allow themselves to learn. If there's a word that is being spoken so much today, and that word is China, they cannot continue with this policy of demonization, of hate China, blame China, fight China. That is not going to, in fact, that's what, if they continue on that way, and we're seeing this, because I tell people, I say, why is America making all the wrong moves? Okay. And so in this, and I want to add to what Paul said, because I've been talking about this in a big way, and this is on some sites that are not American sites, not Western sites, and that is, in this insanity of superpower, fight China, China, the U.S. claims, brags. China doesn't brag. China is humble, and I'm going to read something that Americans will appreciate. And when it comes to building things, okay, I know for a fact, because I've studied it extensively, because I'm amazed at the 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail to zero, and that's where I don't use words like competition, because that's a Western dialogue. So in this, China can build high-speed rails 4 times cheaper than the U.S. They get the work done, and I'm probably lowballing this, 4 times faster. Well, this also pertains to their military capability. So if anybody in America, and I love you all, thinks that it has to do with the number in dollars, because it's always the number in dollars, and that the Americans have the biggest number, therefore they're the strongest military, that is insane. China right now has a much more powerful military than the Americans. Okay, the Chinese don't even realize this, because they hear the numbers too. So when you can build 4 times cheaper and 4 times faster, which is Paul's 1/7, then you have more soldiers than all of the population of the USA. Any person that develops the value method onto military strength knows. And that's why I say only a fool would think about fighting China. Not only that, China investments are pouring into China from all of the investment firms of the West. Pouring in. I mean, I've read pouring in from different articles. It may be flooding. As an American investment company, and you're investing around the world to make profit, you don't even think twice. You're investing in China. Would you invest in high-speed rail in California? No, they're not. The American rich are not investing in America. I mean, you could say that, and you could basically be true. Anyway, so on this, and I want to say something that helps the Americans understand, and that is Jimmy Carter said, he said, I don't believe that China in my lifetime, or maybe my children's lifetime, will be equal to the United States militarily speaking. But we know differently, because we know what the value is when you don't place it in American dollars. He says, but they are very careful to avoid any engagement in war. The Chinese are very careful to avoid any engagement in war. They are basically a peaceful country. China is more than basically a peaceful country. China has never practiced imperialism like the West. He says, this gives them another advantage over the United States when we are more inclined to go to war for various reasons. He also mentioned about, he's Jimmy Carter, every president in America, okay, Nixon's favorite time in his life, the happiest time he ever was when he visited China. When George H.W. Bush visited China, he liked to ride his bike around. Well, he could ride his bike around China amongst the people. They can't even do that in their own country. Can you imagine? American presidents are afraid to ride their bikes around in their own country without heavy security. Watch the videos from these American presidents in China, you're not going to see a whole bunch of tall guys with black suits and their hands in their pocket. They never felt more at peace. They never felt more safe than they were in China. It shows. It's just there, And also too, this when Nixon visited and Kissinger had a secret meeting and set the thing up, Kissinger is a Rockefeller family employee. And I know a lot of Americans really are not allowed or have the opportunity to learn this story, but the Rockefellers, of course, are self-serving and have their own agenda, and this is where the think tanks came from. So anyway, for our American friends, learn about China. That's all. That's all I'm asking. All I'm asking is open the door and peek in. Take a look at the biggest Universal Studios in the world in Beijing. Take a look at the biggest Disney World in the world in Shanghai. The Chinese, if the Americans think they're going to bomb China, China will not shut down and just be building weapons for war. China is ready. Again, please, my American friends, please do not believe, the media. Your media. You don't trust the media. Don't trust the media on their dialogue on China. And
also don't trust the Pentagon.
No, right. Or the CIA is good guys. They only killed Lumumba. They only killed, the list of countries they destroyed, and the leaders, the good leaders, the best men that they've killed.
So democracy will start in USA when Congress is going to start their rule, except Pentagon. When they have opportunity to rule, and when American president is free of policy recommendations.
Yeah, America has so many alphabet agencies, okay? Nobody can mention the 100 of them. It's beyond belief. And with these agencies, this is very important. Nobody in Congress has any control over any of these agencies. None of these members of Congress have any idea of what they're doing. They're very, very, very dangerous, and they're very bad for the world. And being bad for the world,
because most of them are sponsored, most of them are rented. So how can they try to control or try to influence those areas which are not allowed for them?
Well, this is another one, and this is, we all love John F. Kennedy. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you find somebody that says they don't like John F. Kennedy in America, they're kind of pretty nuts. But Kennedy said, the CIA wasn't that old in the early 60s. It only started in 1950. And Kennedy said that he wanted to break them into 1 million pieces or something like that. And then all of a sudden, he had an accident, whatever, the magic 10 bullets or whatever. Then, Americans know they've been conned. Americans know the media lies, but they have to learn, okay? And
exactly.
For their own survival, for the survival of their children. I care about the children.
Exactly. So, sir, let's move to Mr. Paul.
Yes.
Mr. Paul, how can our wisdom help to end this world of war, and how do you think the ancient cultures and China's 5,000 years of wisdom can play a role for peace?
This is the biggest challenge by me. And first of all, as I mentioned before, I stand on this multiple global duality. You call it for two, you call it for the three. I embrace my Latin American culture very richly. Brazil is a wonderful country, and my family here is here in the U.S. And I just at age 73 this next week, I have discovered the other wisdom that I share with you right in the beginning. What is conscience? Because when you don't have any conditionality, not based on the Judaic, Roman Catholic, Protestant, the same branch of the Abrahamic values, I found a certain kind of liberation. Because you and I can talk about the wonderful movie of the Vikings and the Thor, the thunder god of the Vikings, and we can talk about all the deity in the Hindu mystery and the Chinese monkey king and the American native folklores. But our faith had to put forth on the human basis. And what I found it about the conscience, it's just simple: be good, be kind, and be always of gratitude in you. If there's something original in all of us, even we added the Roman Catholicism or your religious value, it should not be a value of antagonism. Because for example, I use a gesture. I watch my African Brazilians, how they have their macumba, umbanda, our dance, our carnival, adapting the Roman Catholic to their deity. Today, if I make a sign of cross, I ask the question, are my values in alignment? Am I thinking? Am I thinking aligned to the human values? So you adapt it to those symbolism. Okay. In the old days, the Catholic go Friday, Saturday they go to confession, fasting on Saturday night to Sunday morning. Then they go to church on Sunday to take the Holy Communion. Okay. Now that has been changed. All the riches, I told my children, my house is your house forever. But before you walk into the door, you get to go through the same thing I go through on a Sunday offertory. I'm coming to the temple of God. What am I bringing to the church? In other words, what am I bringing to my father or my parents? Am I coming in with gifts, or I give them grief, sorrow, complain? So it's a thinking method. When you are a thinking man, you can interpret all these values in a very human way. I do not have to talk into a Pakistani and making first judgment. He probably has in the Muslim name, and then you talk about Hindu. Okay, we have to learn to abstain from judgment. We got to take moral courage to bring other people. Nothing like I do. Well, what do you think? Democracy is to learn from each other. I get the best out of you. I will get the best out of Jim. And then you can get something out of me. So this kind of a universal thinking is no longer Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Islamic, Hindu, or Buddha. I think we have to find, again, the real challenge is to find the sustenance of the global economy without war. The base on war for profit is no longer doable, is no longer viable, not morally, not even economically. I think we have to make these people think, because the US can dominate China. No Chinese will eat their hamburger. They'll go to McDonald's, but that will not be the majority. Okay. Culture is everything. I think we have to learn, find a way to live in peace, engaging each other with peace by helping others poor or their medical conditions or the economic conditions. I think that is the future sharing of a global economy. Then democracy will come.
Exactly. I would like to pin example or a term Mr. Jim normally use, that Western dialogue. How Pakistani thinks is defined in US very well, but it isn't true, because Pakistan isn't a nation state. It is a combination of four original and four federating units, and it is a combination of historical nations like Sindhis, Punjabis, Pashtuns, and Baloch. The nation which I belong to originally is Sindhi, which is which has inherited the Indus Valley civilization. And Sindh, in larger context, or in majority has nothing to do with extremism. We never practice extremism and we never promote extremism. But when we see news in US in media or in Western media outlets, they always portray all Pakistanis as rigid or as extremists because they have a political agenda to do this. Only a slight number, less than 5% of our population is rigid or extremist, and they are expelled right now. They are not directly in mainstream, but because there are many political complications in Pakistan on the level of federation and on the level of government. So because government have been using these type of forces for their political objectives, so somehow or sometimes they protect these type of forces. But in large, or on the when we talk about the majority of the people, more than 95% of Pakistanis and more than 99% of Sindhis are not rigid or extremists. They are pure normal common civilians, and they love peace and they want to live in peace. But the political objectives of West and USA, they have been portraying Pakistanis, Egyptians, Palestinians, Iranians, as like they are just all are extremists and they all are going to fight against West. We love Hollywood, we love Western movies, Western culture. Actually, they have a political agenda because haven't Soviet Union to fight anymore. So they needed a villain to waste their money, to waste their weapons, to get profits. Because if there is no villain, there is no chance of war. And when there is no chance of war, you can't make money. That's what we are talking about. So, as you have given example in the start of this conversation, we don't need these type of bloody excuses for making money. There are many more excuses, many more ways to get profit, to make money in a peaceful way. And that's how we are going to let people think that they can influence their policymakers, they can influence their people, or they can influence their politicians, military men, corporations, that please come forward for peaceful ways to make money, to get profit. And that's the way for collective benefit, for collective profit and collective goodness. Because war is, as you said, war has no implication, war has no result. War only brings destruction, and war just bring benefit to some people or some corporations and just fill their pockets. But in large, on when we talk about on macro scale, war is just destruction. So let's move to Mr. Jim. So as we are going to end this conversation, so I would like to say, Mr. Jim Lochead, Maestro, thank you for your passionate participation. Can you leave us with some words of hope, specifically for the children?
One thing I want to say before we leave, and I want to say something special for Julian Assange. This man is incarcerated by the West for telling the truth.
Exactly.
And I want all the people in the world to understand this, okay? And so one is that what a great group this is. I mean, this is just real people on the ground. We represent so much of humanity here. And I tell you, on the next fourth one, I have a pretty interesting woman friend who's from Kenya, and she lives in Italy. And so she is of African heritage. She used to work for a lot of years with the UN, and she has some very critical things to say about that. She always kind of felt under duress. And I think at that point, if we have the four of us, I think we've pretty much covered the world. Anyway, there is great hope. For those of us that are outside the Western dialogue and are studying the world and have opened the door to learn about China because it's the big word today, there is great hope for the children. There is great hope for the African children like never before. There is great hope for the Asian nations. The Pakistanis maybe understand this more than any other, and they're going to benefit. Iran's going to have 25 years of an economic boom with railroads, ports, dams, and millions of trees. There is great hope. I hope my American friends join us with friendship, cooperation, peace, and prosperity.
Great message. So let's move to Mr. Paul for his ending remarks. Mr. Paul, it was a great pleasure to have you with us today and share your vast wisdom. Please share a final thought with the good people listening us.
As I said, my message has been consistent since I was 16. I made the commitment to education because I really think by making education available to all ages, I have the moral courage to teach youngsters the value of money and the value of economics. Because in your life and my life, all the war has started with the basic economic reasons. And for the most part, for power and greed. As in the case of Opium War, as in the case of the colonial war, the case of invasion of all the American nations since the day of Columbus. I hope this time around, with the kind of awareness that you and I have not known each other until now, we carry a message of the real people that Jim, you, me, next week, maybe from Kenya, maybe the following week we have somebody from Argentina, from Brazil. We have to carry this message of hope. The young people is our future. We want to lead the world with a good environment, a good format of education, and a good system of economics that is sustainable. That means cooperation, that means collaboration, that means sharing. And I hope if in my lifetime, starting with Jim and you, that's already a first step into this hope.
Not lost.
No.
It's first, and we are going to have such conversations, like many more conversations through Zoom and other channels, and these conversations will benefit hundreds of thousands of people to correct their path.
Yes, I think I salute you also. I salute you for your preparation of this channel, starting just with two of us, maybe one. And this is the way to start, not from the top of the academia, but from the bottom of the people whom we can reach. Okay?
Exactly.
And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.